This is the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Now, he puts the broad in broadband. It's Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I know there is a sea of podcast options out there, and so the fact that you subscribe and you make this a destination every day, from the bottom of my heart and the team that helps put this together, we owe you big. Thank you for your written reviews and your 5-star reviews at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You help us stand out, sincerely. So thank you so much for giving this show time today. And I thank the folks at John Ruhlman's usmedicalplan.com. John is our title sponsor. He keeps the lights on, if you will. All the sponsors that you hear on this show, I thank them profusely. I think they do great work and sell great products. I know they're going to take great care of you, and I thank you for supporting them as well. Can't do it without you. Can't do it without John Ruhlman and our sponsors in the show. John wants to save you big money on health insurance. So if you're looking for cheaper rates on health insurance, or you just think, gosh, I am spending a fortune on these premiums, is there an option? Answer, yes, there is. 877-410-4321 is the telephone number. Call him. He's got like 80 different private insurers that he can research to get you the best plan. And he does all the work. This is not some bureaucratic headache that you're going to have to negotiate yourself. John does it all and saves you potentially hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in premiums. If you're spending money out of pocket on your family's insurance, your employee's insurance, if you're a senior on fixed income, let John go to work and save you money and get you better coverage. 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Another headline, another week, another one of these. I've got a stack I'm just keeping for fun, just so I can remind you when we hit about summertime why everything they say to you right now is a lie. Biden's eroding support from black voters puts White House on defense. Another one of these. Now, I kept a whole stack, and I'm keeping this stack just because I want to. This is starting to entertain me now. I know the media doesn't believe this. Remember, yesterday we talked about Trump being worse than Hitler. Business Insider now wondering aloud if Trump might just die. Could we just get to Trump's death and end it all? So I don't believe for a second that they want rid of Joe Biden. I just don't. Joe Biden, for all intents and purposes, appears to be on track to be the nominee again. That could change, and I've taken bets to that effect at the Harump Society. So I hold out the possibility they're trying to get rid of the old man, but assuming they don't, or they're not successful, or he hangs in, or whatever, I mean, Dr. Jill is still decorating for the White House. Another disaster that. You see, they stopped hanging stockings at the White House now because they've got another grandchild they have to claim. They're running out of mantle space, Fast Eddie.
Oh, no.
No kidding.
How many they up to?
Yeah, I think Joe Biden, Hunter Biden's love child was the 7th grandchild. 6 of them they were claiming. And for 2 years, they wouldn't claim Hunter's stripper love baby. And then once Joe finally had to acknowledge the stripper love baby from Hunter, then Jill decided to stop hanging stockings at the White House mantle. So no stockings this year. I guess they ran out of mantle room. But anyway, I digress. So I'm not convinced the Bidens are going anywhere. I don't think Dr. Jill wants to go anywhere. I don't think Joe thinks he's going anywhere. Now, maybe they'll still achieve it. I'm not saying these stories aren't designed to achieve it. I don't want you thinking to yourself, oh, he's in such trouble. There's no way he can win. We told ourselves this back in 2022. This economy is in such sorry shape, there's no way the Republicans aren't going to run away with it. Remember that? You were here for that. There is no way Republicans aren't going to win in a rout. And what happened? We barely, by 4 seats, took the House of Representatives with the help of George Santos. Okay, so we aren't standing in good stead here, and I don't trust for 1 minute all of these headlines chirping about what trouble Biden's in. Yet here they come, an avalanche of them. Just to remind you, in case you forgot before Thanksgiving, Biden standing hits new lows amid Israel-Hamas war. A 5-alarm Biden re-election fire. These are all headlines. That was from the Wall Street Journal. NBC News before that. Jumbled mess. The Bidenomics brand leaves nearly everyone, including Biden, baffled. Black voters show signs of slipping away from Biden in 2024. Biden loses ground with young voters, prompting Democrat concerns. The growing divide among Democrats over the Israel-Hamas war. Rural voters continue to evade Democrats. Most Americans believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. Democrats urge Biden to revamp campaign's economic message. How to read Biden's bad polls from Axios. Washington Post, Democrats panicking about Biden's 2024 chances. And then, of course, I shared with you yesterday, what about Bob Casey running around Pennsylvania saying, no, the economy sucks. I don't want you confusing me with Biden. I know things suck. So Democrats who are in states where Democrats believe they may be in trouble are now running away from Biden actively. Here's another one today. Joe Biden's eroding support from black voters puts White House on defense. Black voters say President Biden has abandoned his pledge to always have their backs and are threatening to withhold their support in 2024. And some are even drifting toward former President Donald Trump. No, this can't be. This is from the Washington Times. Black voters, some of them are even drifting toward Trump. The lack of enthusiasm among black voters could prove fatal to Mr. Biden's re-election chances. They formed the core of Mr. Biden's base in 2020. Remember, this is true. It was old James Clyburn down there in South Carolina. You and I were trucking along in 2020 thinking to ourselves, I don't know who the Democrat nominee is going to be. It's been a lot of fun to watch this fist fight amongst them all, but Kamala was the first to drop out. Joe Biden was nowhere to be found. And then all of a sudden they hit South Carolina, and eureka! James Clyburn managed to find every voter in South Carolina, and they all voted for Joe Biden, and then it was Nevada and Joe Biden, and then Joe Biden's president of the United States. He went from literally nobody talking about him, Woody Harrelson doing impressions of him on Saturday Night Live, making fun of him being an old man, a doddering old fool. People were laughing at him. You remember that huge primary? That was, wasn't Bloomberg in that, if memory serves?
And Pete took Iowa.
Mayor
That was
Pete.
huge.
That's right. That's right. And somehow, this irrelevant, stupid old man that everybody knew was stupid and old and doddering and had no business being president, even Saturday Night Live was making fun of him. Then all of a sudden he hits South Carolina and James Clyburn says, "Ha, I got you, boy. I got you. Don't you worry." And out came the black vote in South Carolina for old Joe. And the rest is history. And, oh, by the way, the first person to drop out of the Democrat primary became the vice president of the United States. Which, again, all of this goes to continue to foster this feeling that you and I have always had, regardless of ballots, regardless of vote counts and machines and fraudulent activity and rigged elections and all of those things I believe are true. Despite all of that, even Democrats know deep down, and so do you and I, there's something really wrong with the fact that this stupid old husk is the president and that she's the vice president, because by all accounts, they were literally first to drop out in Kamala Harris's case and dead last in Joe Biden's case in the polling amongst that huge field. Pocahontas, Bernie Sanders. So there's been this constant feeling amongst most Americans, if they're honest, including Democrats, this guy was never legitimately the president anyway. He was somehow handpicked. Remember Oliver Stone telling Bill Maher over the weekend on his podcast, "You think 2020 was legit? Do you really?" Maher stammering in disbelief that anyone would dare question the integrity of the elections, because even Democrats know this guy was handpicked in some smoky back room, and so was that stupid, vapid woman that sits alongside him pretending to be VP. So there's something very curious to me, folks. This was all engineered, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Nobody wanted them, and yet we got them. And somebody made sure we got them. Who was it? I believe Barack Obama. So, unless Barack Obama has decided Joe Biden's time has worn out, Joe Biden is not going anywhere. Now, it may be that Barack Obama has decided his usefulness is up, but I just want to caution you. This avalanche of stories, all those headlines I just read, came in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's not a month's worth of news stories. As we head into Christmas, now today, Joe Biden's eroding support from black voters, puts the White House on defense. I don't trust it. Do not sit back and think to yourself, oh, well, this is walk in the park, slam dunk now. Look, there's trouble everywhere. Fellow Democrats hate him, blacks hate him, gays hate him, rural voters hate him, young people hate him. Ha! It's all ours for the taking, you might think. Careful. Don't get too cocky, ladies and gentlemen, because there's always somebody out there from the GOP ready to screw things up royally. Her name? Ronna Romney McDaniel, the chairwoman of the opposition, a glittering jewel of, well, I won't call her stupid. She's not stupid, but she's very smart in the sense that she's enriching herself. But ineffectiveness, a glittering jewel of, all right, I'll be charitable and call her a glittering jewel of ineffectiveness. Headline yesterday, the Washington Post reporting that the RNC has $9 million in the bank as of October. $9 million. I have 3 guys in my phone that have more in their bank account right now that I could call. That I know personally, that I know for a fact have more than that, probably times 2 or 3, probably, at least. Like, I can't express to you, 9 million sounds like a lot to most of us. It is. I mean, I'd love to have $9 million, but when you're talking about a national party, $9 million that's parade candy. That's nothing. Significantly less than the $20 million the party reported having on hand at this same point in Donald Trump's 2016 presidential cycle. The Democrats, by comparison, as of October, have, double. Democrats have double the money Republicans do. Ronna says, don't worry, though. Don't sweat it. Everything's fine. This is not indicative of the RNC's financial prowess. Donors are still focusing on donating to individual presidential campaigns. I think there's just more donors out there just fully committed to their candidate right now, saying I'm all in, and once the nominee is set, I'll be there. That's what I hear more than anything. And they're really solidly in the camps of their candidate. And that's normal. There's nothing unusual about this because they know that once their candidate gets in, that we will merge and we'll be working together to win the White House. The party also noted it has already sent staff to 15 swing states to get a head start on the get out the vote effort and election monitoring. Obviously not in Pennsylvania. We saw how that worked out recently. Do you trust Ronna Romney McDaniel in there, Fast Eddie? She said, don't sweat it. We got people out there in 15 states. We filed more than 70 election integrity lawsuits. Oh, this is nothing. 9 million. Don't panic. People are just giving to their individual candidate right now. You know, the Haley fanatics. Or all those robust Chris Christie backers. They're all out there giving money to those guys because they want to see them become the next Republican nominee. But however it ends up shaking out, then everyone will coalesce and come together, and Ronna will be there to collect your check. Because we're all going to throw into the fund collectively once we're done cheering our respective horse to the Republican nomination finish line. Do you believe this story?
Chris, no. I think we experienced Virginia this year where it said, no, they didn't ask for any money. Well, you didn't have it. Exactly. So, no, I point to Virginia in 2023. No, I don't believe it.
Yeah, she claims that Virginia never asked for money. Glenn Youngkin busted his hump to get Republican voters out in Virginia, and Ronna McDaniel's answer for their crushing losses in Virginia was, nobody called us and asked for money. Yeah, that's exactly right. Fast Eddie's telling the truth. If you missed that story, she said it on the last debate stage in the spin room to our colleague Larry O'Connor. Nobody called me. They said they were fine. They didn't need our money. There's never been a state party in the history of state parties to ever tell the national party of either party, We're good. We don't need your money. That's never happened in political history. I say that with great assurance that I could pick up the phone and call many political consultant friends, and they would all confirm never in the history of political parties has a state political party called the national party and said, we good. Keep your money. Never has that happened. But that's what she claims happened in Virginia. They don't have the money. They don't have the money. Republicans note that without transfers and when comparing the RNC sister committees and Democrat committees, the RNC beats the other committees in direct fundraising by $10 million, with the exception of Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee. The party also notes when comparing the RNC's current fundraising, they're on par with the NC. McDaniel has faced criticism from her leadership for her leadership amid Republican losses in recent elections. McDaniel was reelected to a fourth term as chair in January after facing challenges from California attorney Harmeet Dillon, who should have been the Republican Party chair. Harmeet Dillon should have been the chair. Sadly, she is not. So I guess I just wanted to start by letting you know that while I realize there are many, many, many unfavorable headlines for Joe Biden, and it may look to you like Joe Biden is in a mess. I mean, Pepe Le Pew had a terrible day at the White House press briefing. And you may think to yourself, because it went so poorly, and it continues to go so poorly for Pepe Le Pew, and the press is asking her such tough questions that she clearly doesn't like answering, and you keep reading these negative headlines, Joe Biden's got to be in trouble. And maybe he is with his own party. But I don't want any of you, please listen to me, don't go cockily into the holidays thinking, oh, slam dunk, baby. I think we all know better than that, don't we? Here's a little yesterday from Pepe Le Pew at the White House press briefing with Peter Doocy.
Lowering prices, you said earlier that the actions the president has taken have worked. So is it your sense that when people were home for Thanksgiving, catching up with their family members, they were saying to each other, can you believe how much more affordable things have gotten?
So honestly, I wouldn't. I hear the question, but I want to make sure this is very clear. We take that very seriously. We take what families, the decisions that they make at their kitchen table, whether it's during Thanksgiving or whether it is every month as they're trying to make hard decisions about how they move forward with taking care of their family. We take that very seriously. It's not a joke to us. It is important to us. This is the president who talks about it in a very personal way when he talks about what families have to go through, working families, middle-class families, and that's why he's taking actions that he has. And so, look, the fact is, the data shows that the economy is improving. Okay,
that's enough.
The data
that's
shows
enough.
that households...
So that's the trouble she has. Peter Doocy says, who around their family table at Thanksgiving was saying, golly, can you believe how affordable everything is? Wow, I've never been rolling around in so much cash. Doocy basically mocking her to her face that no American family of modest means is saying that to one another over Thanksgiving. So I hear your question, Peter, she says, but the fact is the data. Yes, the data. People love to be told the data when they can't afford groceries. Ed O'Keefe, CBS News. Another swing at
And I suspect if we polled the room, many of us will probably ask some version of the following question. Okay. Given the president's sagging poll numbers and the fact that he is currently placing behind any Republican opponent, has there been any talk in this White House about a change in strategy or staffing going forward in reflection of those numbers to continue to show him underwater?
No.
Any shot you guys might mix it up at all, given that you seem to be polling behind everybody, including people we all know not going to win, like Chris Christie? Like nobody wants you guys. Clear all the poll. Any of you going to leave? Ed O'Keefe, any shot we might get a new White House press secretary? No. Data. Next. Doocy, back at it again.
But why do you think it is that
up.
when you say the economy is improving and President Biden says the economy is improving, that a majority of Americans outside of this building are not buying it?
So here's the thing. When we walked into this administration, the economy was on a tailspin. That is the fact. Because of the last administration.
The economy was in a tailspin.
Because of the Trump administration. Because of how they dealt with COVID and the pandemic. Because they didn't have a comprehensive plan.
What was yours?
Came in. He passed the American Rescue Plan, which was able to get the economy back on its feet, which was able to open up small businesses were able to open up, schools were able to open up, and we understand what Americans have been feeling over the last 2-3 years.
You're feeling it, you morons. It's not real, though, you see.
We get that. It's going to take some time, but it does not take away
the data?
How we have seen the economy getting back on its feet.
Okay, so that's the official answer. You emotional morons just don't understand the data. We understand how you feel, but you're an idiot. The data shows I'm right. You go back and tell all your Fox News idiot viewers, Peter Ducey, that the economy's swell and my data points in my book say so. Okay, quite a strategy. Any of you thinking about mixing it up at all, changing it all, the messaging, the staff? No. Next. Bold strategy, Cotton. Okay. So you would look at all of this and you might say to yourself, this looks good. This is good news. I think this could make a big sea change for conservatives and Republicans out there. Well, over at Town Hall Sarah Arnold, over 20 million immigrants set to vote in 2024. Since the 2020 election, several lawmakers have sounded the alarm that migrants may be voting in U.S. elections illegally. Worries are again ramping up in 2024. According to analysis from the left-wing American Immigration Council, more than 23 million immigrants are set to vote in the upcoming election, revealing the electoral power of the United States' annual importation of more than 1 million immigrants that they have given naturalized citizen status to. As more immigrants naturalize and become eligible to vote, they continue to gain political power, the analysis states. The number of immigrant voters is only projected to rise in the next decade. In some states, foreign-born voters are already capable of deciding elections. The analysis from Breitbart indicates foreign-born eligible voters will again account for about 1 in 10 of all eligible voters next year, likely an unprecedented level of foreign-born eligible voters in the American electorate, given enormous voting power to those not born in the United States. The 2020 presidential election, for instance, decided by just 7 million votes. As you remember, in Nevada, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump by 33,000 votes. 10,000 votes in Arizona, 11,000 votes in Georgia, and 81,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden won Michigan by 154,000 votes, and in Wisconsin just by 20,000 votes. You know, it really, when you go back and you look at those numbers again, just as I said, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't legitimately get the party's nomination, and you know damn good and well, as sure as I sit here, they didn't legitimately win that election either when you just look at those numbers. Sorry to open old wounds. It does no good to look in the rearview mirror here, but it really is stunning by Breitbart when you lay it out. Donald Trump lost Nevada by 33,000 votes. Donald Trump lost Georgia by 11,000 votes. We know he didn't. Donald Trump lost Arizona by 10,000 votes. We know he didn't. And as far as Pennsylvania goes, 81,000 votes, well, hell, they've got those in Al Schmidt's basement in Philadelphia, I'm sure. Nevertheless, my point is, Trump won native-born American voters by 49%. Mrs. Clinton, by comparison, in 2016, only won them by 45%. Put another way, if the 2016 election were up to foreign-born voters only, Clinton would have beaten Trump in a historic landslide. The analysis comes at a time when Joe Biden faces immense pressure to boost voter turnout ahead of the election. Mike Johnson warned then that the Biden administration wants to turn illegal migrants into Democrat voters, hence the reason the administration is looking the other way at one of the worst border crises in American history. The Biden administration has done this intentionally. Secretary Mayorkas has done this intentionally. For what reason? Everyone asks me this all the time about the open border. This is then Mike Johnson congressman, now speaker, but Breitbart reporting on this back then. Johnson said, I think ultimately they hope to turn all these illegals into voters. It sounds sinister, but there's no other explanation for what's happening down there. It's an absolute humanitarian and now national security catastrophe, really. And they could reverse it overnight if they wanted to, but they don't. Earlier this year, of course, you remember California considered a measure allowing non-citizens to vote in municipal elections. Democrats advocate for more illegal aliens to be let into the country. New York has also considered a similar measure. The state Supreme Court has struck it down so far. States like Ohio, Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Minnesota, and North Dakota have banned non-citizen voting outright. But the point is, this is important when you hear the left talk about we should just go with the popular vote and do away with electoral college, too. This is also another huge thing to keep an eye on. When California and New York say they want to let illegals vote, how many millions of them live in those states? And if you went by popular vote alone and all of those illegals voting in all of these blue states were allowed and the popular vote was what won the day, well, we already know in 2016, if it were just non-citizens voting, Mrs. Clinton would have beaten Trump. So listen, I don't say this to dispirit you. I'm not. I'm not trying to dispirit you at all. In fact, I think there's lots of good news out there, and I think much of it is seen in the fact that most of this country feels insecure financially, physically, borders, crime, global instability. And we could go down the list. I think the Republicans have the shot at capitalizing on this. Can they turn out voters? Well, with $9 million in the bank, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying at the moment I'm not optimistic. And here we go, what? In a week, we're going to go back to another debate. Where's this one? I forget. The last one was in Miami. Megyn Kelly's anchoring the next debate, December 6th. I forget where the hell is it Arizona? I don't even know where they're doing it. Michigan? I guess it doesn't matter. But, and I don't know. More Americans losing money on home sales. This from Axios. A growing proportion of homeowners selling their houses for less than they paid. Some homeowners lost six-figure amounts on their sale. More than 3% of U.S. homes sold at a loss in October. Everything would suggest it's trending in the Republicans' favor, but never, ever discount the Republican Party being run by Ronna Romney McDaniel, seemingly, and by the way, a healthy amount of fractiousness inside the Republicans. It's getting nasty as we approach Iowa. Starting to get very personal out there on social media between Trumpists and DeSantis backers. I won't participate. I don't. I have stayed out of that. Very good friends of mine are now just taking very personal, dirty shots at one another on social media over Trump and DeSantis. I stay out. I'm not participating. I will be happy if either man wins the candidacy. I've been clear with you and honest with you that my heart has been with Donald Trump. It just has been because I feel that one of the great injustices of our lifetimes, maybe this country's history, is what was done to this president. I can't accept it. I cannot say it's time to move on from it, because to move on from it is to acquiesce and lay down our arms and say we accept. I don't accept what happened to Donald Trump. So I've been honest with you there. But if Ron DeSantis is successful in Iowa, I'm thrilled. I'll be first in line to vote for him. Can't wait to be at the convention and cover Ron DeSantis' candidate. You know, he's got a debate coming up with Gavin Newsom. Are you looking forward to that, Fast Eddie, a debate with Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis? Does that mean anything to you now, given apparently, and I'm just saying apparently, polls favor Trump pretty substantially in most primary states? Does this DeSantis-Newsom display do anything for you?
It does. I actually love this.
What's it do for you?
It just excites me because I love when the left is forced to face their policies, and I feel like Ron DeSantis can beat Gavin Newsom over the head with his policies during a debate like this.
I agree with you. He's a prosecutor. He's a natural attorney, literally a trained JAG officer. So the guy knows this stuff like the back of his hand. He knows how to prosecute a case. We've seen what he does in Florida. Now, do you think that he could put up a strong enough showing that it could propel him to win the favor of Iowa voters and change the trajectory of this election? He's hoping so. Do you think it can?
I think it's probably his last best shot. I think it could, yes. Will it? I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll wait and see. I'm not emotionally invested in this. I mean, I'm emotionally invested in the sense that I, as I said, I believe in my whole heart the raiding of a former president's home and arresting a former president is the most outrageous thing we've ever seen. We're watching a political persecution. We're watching Banana Republic stuff. The Democrats have weaponized our government against their opposition. We've never seen that in American history. And to say, let's move on, is not an acceptable. You understand? That is not anti-DeSantis. That's not even anti-Haley or Christie or Vivek that's not anti any of them. You can't tell me let's move on from weaponizing the government against a political enemy. Sorry, I can't move on from that. Because if we allow that to stand, it will happen to the next nominee. It will. They'll come for him or her next. So that's the hill I die on emotionally. But if you told me Ron DeSantis just has a lights-out performance against Newsom and becomes the nominee, I'll be first in the parade line. But Houston, we have a problem at the GOP, and her name is Ronna Romney McDaniel with a measly $9 million in the bank. And do you see any evidence of a ground game turning out the early collected vote yet, Fast Eddie?
No, Chris, to be honest, 2020, there were planes flying over the radio station. You remember this?
Yes.
IWillVote.com. The Biden administrator, the Democrats were mobilized. They were flying those things at the beach. When did we hear about Bank Your Vote from Ronna McDaniel?
This year.
We heard 2023, right?
Yeah.
And we still lost.
Yeah, and we still lost. Again, not trying to be a wet blanket. I'm just reminding you all these headlines that tell you there's no way in the world this stupid old man with all of this negative headlines going to win. Don't anybody want to be cocky about it? Anybody want to bet on it now after 2 election cycles we've been through? Stay laser focused. I know I don't have to tell this audience to be motivated, but don't get distracted and don't get cocky. Never get comfortable with the idea that it's in the bag. Just because Biden's getting negative press. There's something to it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that Obama wants him out. We've talked about that before. I'm not convinced he's going willfully. He may have another accident. There may be another fall. Maybe he'll go paddle boarding out there in the lagoon near Obama's house and mysteriously float ashore.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I shouldn't. I went Business Insider there for a minute. Excuse me. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years. But now he has 2 brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, Chris, I can't begin to express how proud I am, obviously, of having my daughter there. Also, Dr. Geddes is just a wonderful addition to our practice. He is a classmate of my daughter Alexa's at Temple Dental School, and I have known Jared for about 7 years now. Getting to know Jared over the years, it was my wife Debbie and my daughter Emily who kept telling me, you have to hire Jared. You have to hire Jared. He's going to be a superstar. Jared went off to USC, did a 1-year residency after his year at Temple, and he came back and he worked for about a year in practice in New Jersey. And after, again, my wife and daughter beating my brains in, I got the message and I hired Jared, and he's been a great addition to Williamsburg Dental.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Just before Thanksgiving, I'm pretty sure we did not talk to Daniel Turner about it. Our great friend at Power of the Future. He's the founder and executive director there. But it was one of my, we've got a couple of reasons to have Daniel on today. The 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference is soon to get underway. What pit of hell global prescription has that group got for us in terms of energy consumption? We'll get into that. But one of the things I wanted to run by Daniel was this great video I saw from a guy charging his plug-in car, and I'd never heard the usage or kilowatts explained this way. His math on this, Daniel, and good morning to you, by the way. Welcome in.
Oh, Chris, thanks for having me on. Good morning.
His math on this was I plug in my car, and I'm drawing enough power to charge my car, not even at the full wattage those things, I forget the kilowatts, over 300 kilowatts, and some are like 100 and something kilowatts. But his point was the charge on his car was consuming the amount of energy over 100 homes would be consuming on the grid on an average day. Have you heard that before? I'd never heard that these cars charging are the equivalent of hundreds of homes and their average daily use on the grid. Have you heard that stat?
I have not. I would think that strikes me a little bit high, but I will say that when you get an EV and if you get the home charging station, that will use more electricity than everything else in your house combined. And that's one of the hidden costs that they don't tell you about. You know, they say, Pete Buttigieg used to say, hey, if you don't like the price of gas, get an EV and you don't have to worry about gas. But you do have to worry about an electric bill that's enormous if you're charging it at home, right? And that's why people like to have charging stations at work or the bank. But even those, the ones that you see in public, you may see them at the grocery store, the first couple spots now. They used to be for veterans and pregnant women. Now they're for EV chargers because they are the most special people. But they'll even have a limit where it's only 30 minutes, right? Because the grocery store is like, we can't afford to charge these people's cars.
That's right.
So they're outrageously expensive.
Soon, Daniel, will be standing and saluting EV users at football games. How about a moment to honor our EV drivers in the crowd? Stand and be recognized.
They are the greatest among us. They are. And that's what's so amazing about this conference in Dubai. I hope you're going to be there. I'm already here.
Sure.
I got to tell you, there's around 40,000 folks here in Dubai. The amount of hookers and cocaine is incredible. I mean, it's like every climate conference. It's the only reason why we gather, right? Yes, it's about climate change, but I got to tell you that the Emirates flight from Dulles Airport was beautiful. The wine is flowing. It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, you got to love United Nations Conference.
Now, wait a minute. Just to be clear, I want to be clear. Are you joshing me, or are you really at the United Arab Emirates? I've never been. If you're there, I'd love to know.
I would love to go to this conference. I don't think I could afford it, and I don't think they would let me in. I would really be curious. I tweeted about it yesterday. Well, I'm going to be tweeting about it the whole time. But the very first conference, the very first opening event is about climate and gender. And it's held by this group called Feminists for Climate Action. And I think, boy, when you think about feminism and feminist rights, you think about the Middle East, right? Like the amount of women there who had to get permission from their either dads or husbands or the dog if they were allowed to attend that feminist conference. I mean, having a feminist conference in the Middle East is honestly like having like a religious liberty conference in China.
Yeah,
it's going right over people's heads.
Yeah,
like
how about
literally the conference?
How about the pork producers of America having their annual conference somewhere in the Middle East? It's a similar.
It's like having an AA meeting at the Kennedy compound. I mean, there is
we could do it all day.
No reason.
We could do it all day. Daniel, this is a fascinating thing. The party of science, who now won't acknowledge biology and gender. I mean, we were just talking about this a little while ago. So feminists are now letting men pretend to be women, and we're to pretend there's no such thing as biology anymore and gender. It's just assigned. But these are the same people that say, right, trust the science, and we're all gathered to have a critical discussion about our energy consumption because we're warming the earth or some such thing.
Exactly. And the science, I had some fun with this as well. Here I am plugging myself all day. But I had some fun with this as well on science. The report that the Biden administration put out, the climate survey of 2023, and Biden went on camera and he talked about how the science shows that America is heating more than the rest of the world. America is heating faster than the rest of the world, and that's pretty scary. Until I Googled literally every other continent on the planet, and I found similar studies. And I put them all online, Africa studies. I was going to the point of countries, and kids, you can play this at home. Literally put in a country, and France is heating more than the rest of the world. And then you can change France for Italy, for Japan, Australia. I have yet to find a country that I cannot find a study that says it is heating faster than the rest of the world. And that's science, right? Those are all respectable scientists from respectable institutes. And that just goes to show you how science is absolutely politicized. It's for sale. And you can get science to say whatever you want. Look at COVID. You know, science said if you sit down, you can take your mask off, but if you stand up, you put it on. That was science, Chris. That was just pure science.
We have a local meteorologist who loves, you're talking about loving herself. She actually said on a live news broadcast to her audience, such that it is in Philadelphia, that the unusual October warm day was due to the local effects of global warming. The local
stuff.
effects. How can you localize global anything exactly?
Science. That's how. And it's absolutely petrifying, right? Heck, Gavin Newsom does this all the time. Every time he doesn't manage his forests, he says, well, it's because of climate change and there's another forest fire.
Yeah.
And you say that's so odd because Western Nevada doesn't seem to have all these forest fires. Southern Oregon doesn't seem to. And they'll say, well, it's the localized effect of climate change. It just pinpoints California. Amazing how science is that accurate.
I am so glad. I know we're ping-ponging here, but you just brought up something that I heard while I was away for a few days. I was driving around and I heard a news report. I found this amazing. I think it was a national forest, like a federally protected land out west. I wish I could remember where specifically, but I kid you not, $5. They were charging people $5 to go in and cut down their own Christmas tree on federally protected lands under the auspices of, and you just mentioned it, what? Why would the federal officials allow people to go in on federally protected lands, charge people $5 to cut down small trees for their own homes? Why would they allow that?
I'm assuming to help prevent forest fires.
Precisely.
Because the forests are overrun.
Precisely right. To clear out the undergrowth and help prevent forest fire. I was like, oh, well, so they're acknowledging the federal government, Biden's federal government acknowledges what causes forest fires. I'll be damned.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? And, you know, the Christmas tree thing, I'm reluctant to even say this because I don't want to give the environmental left more ideas. But I am amazed every Christmas season that we are allowed to chop down 30 million trees. Now, don't get me wrong. My tree is 17 feet tall. I have a very big double-story great room. Oh, yeah. And we nearly killed ourselves putting the star on top. When you're balancing on a ladder 10 feet in the air, you're like, this is a bad idea, but it's for Jesus. And it's a beautiful tree. But as I was putting it up, I was wondering to myself, like, eventually we're going to have to ban this, right? Eventually they're going to say we cannot chop down 30 million trees, but yet we don't seem to run out of them.
Yeah, no.
And that's the amazing thing of the free markets and the amazing thing of capitalism. We don't run out of Christmas trees. We kill something absurd like 3 billion chickens a day. We don't run out of chicken, right? We kill something absurd like 500,000 cows a day. We never run out of cows, you know? So how do you get more of something? Monetize it. You know, and that's what we have all this climate science because we monetize it. So you get more and more crap because someone's paying for it. The only problem is that it's the government paying for it. It's the Biden administration. And if you're a climate scientist and you need to feed your family this Christmas, yeah, sure, I'll issue a report that says America's warming faster, or I'll issue a report that says Philadelphia's warming faster because that's what science is now. It's up for sale.
You know, we were just talking yesterday with a state senator in Pennsylvania over something called RGGI. You've probably heard about this, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative that the previous governor of Pennsylvania entered into. Some, you know, multi-state cabal where a bunch of Democrat governors decide that we're going to reduce our carbon emissions. And what that ultimately means is, though, and this is what amazes me, they want to drive us to all electric everything, but their carbon capping and their charging and their penalizing of energy producers is doing what? It's causing energy production facilities to close, Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. I know. Do they know what they're doing? Do they know that their goodwill for the environment is actually shutting down the very sources of electricity they want us to draw from?
No, and that's why we're at the point now, and this is to turn on a serious note as we head into winter, we're at the point now that our elected officials, because of climate insanity, are doing fingers crossed energy policy. And fingers crossed policy is, let's hope we don't have a really bad winter, which, in the Northeast we didn't last year, at least where, I'm sure some parts were bad, but for the most part it was a fairly mild winter. And we got off scot-free. But that's fingers crossed policy. That is not planning for the inevitable. What if we have a terrible winter? Last I saw my area of Shenandoah, Virginia, they said, get ready, boys, because we haven't had a winter this bad in 5 years. Now, it's a prediction. Yep. We don't know what it's going to do. But if they're right, is Pennsylvania prepared? How many natural gas reserves are there? About coal reserves? And you go up the entire Northeast corridor all the way up to Maine, and they are doing fingers crossed energy policy. And if they are wrong, it will be deadly.
Am I misremembering, Daniel, that New England had to ration natural gas a few winters ago or last winter? There was massive deaths in New York during a cold snap. Buffalo, if memory serves, 2 years ago. Texas,
100%.
Right?
100%. And there's enough natural gas in the wonderful Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to power the entire world, let alone the Northeast. There are hundreds of years of reserves of natural gas in this country, but Pennsylvania alone has over 100 years of worldwide natural gas reserves. And yet you have a governor like Maura Healey from the state of Massachusetts who is on record saying that she would rather get foreign fossil fuels than build a pipeline to Pennsylvania. And you scratch your head and say, do you hate Pennsylvania? Do you hate America? Do you hate your own Massachusetts constituents? Now, as a New Yorker, I agree with her. I hate Massachusetts, too. But I would never run for office in Massachusetts and risk the lives of my constituents. And yet that is absolutely how crazy the Green movement is, that they will risk the lives of their constituents for a philosophy that none of them will be affected by. Just as John Kerry right now is in the presidential suite at the Burj Al Khalifa on the 130th floor, and he's drinking champagne, Maura Healey or your governor in California, Shapiro, if the bad snowstorm comes, they'll be okay.
Sure.
Right? The mansion is safe. They have generators. They'll be protected. It's the regular, faceless, powerless folks who are at risk this winter. And fingers crossed, it's not a bad winter, but boy, that is no way to run a country, let alone a state.
Just as a bypassing for a moment, good news, speaking of New England, Chris Christie is on CNN this morning saying that he pledges to stay in the race through the conventions. And he's playing hard in New Hampshire. So there you go.
Thank God. Yeah. I was worried about that this morning. I didn't know how to bring it up because it's always on my mind,
I just don't. I can't get over it.
Last I saw, my New York Giants said they were going to finish out the season 2, and we were like, "Good for you, boys. That is the type of determination we need." We are not quitters.
It must be something just coursing through the northeastern seaboard right now. That's Bill Belichick and the Patriots this season too, for that matter. Good grief. Okay, well, Daniel, what will come of this? There's a Hill piece that says leaked documents. Not that this should surprise us, show UAE effort to push fossil fuel deals amid the leadership of Global Climate Summit. So fossil fuel pushes among potential discussion areas ahead of this global climate.
Just the way we joked about how they're having this conference on gender in Dubai, the larger joke is they are having a climate conference in Dubai. The entire city of Dubai, the entire UAE is built on oil. And that's wonderful, right? Like Texas is built on oil.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have those resources and they are exploiting them to the point that they are building indoor ski resorts, there's a reason why they have the world's most extravagant hotel. There's a reason why they have the world's largest building right now. They build islands to look like the globe. They build islands in the shape of palm trees because they have so much damn money they don't know what to do with it, so they build fake islands. And that is where the climate conference is held. So, yeah, if you're the energy minister of the kingdom, that's your job, is to get people to buy your oil and gas. If John Kerry is dumb enough to bring 40,000 of his friends to fill up his hotels and their restaurants, holy crap, I mean, I would hold a conference too. I'd have my enemies buy my products. Yeah. And that's exactly what the UAE is doing. And they're falling. And the United Nations is dumb enough to fall for it. I thank you, Dubai, for hosting this.
Yeah, how thoughtful.
Yeah,
how thoughtful of you to open your homes to us. What's this memo? You'd like us to consider more oil consumption. We'll have to consider that over champagne and caviar.
Exactly. As they are having, these fine Louis XIII brandy, they're going to discuss how do we import more oil. Why wouldn't they? And they never have these conferences in Raqqa, right? Juba, South Sudan wasn't on the list because there is no Burj Al Khalifa in Juba. But they love going to Dubai.
Switzerland.
Last year they were in Sharm El Sheikh. I'm telling you, Chris, we got to start working for the United Nations, brother, because it is a good life.
They're just be clowns. They're such clowns.
They are having a lot more fun.
I just can't get past the clownery. It's buffoonishness. It's like okay, I know, we get it. Thank you for a rare Tuesday laugh, Daniel Turner, founder, executive director of Power of the Future. Thank you, my friend. They're already thinking about the Christmas shopping season at gulagamerica.com. Have you been to their website yet? I'm so proud to call these folks new sponsors to the show. They are founding harumphers. They've been longtime sponsors. I see them from time to time posting on social media. They want to invite you to come into their store, gulagamerica.com, a great stop for patriots and conservatives this holiday season. Gulagamerica.com, now extending an offer to you if you're a listener of this show. They're going to give you 20% off your entire order between now and Christmas. They're kicking off the Christmas season early. Between now and Christmas, you'll save 20% on all your shopping if you use my promo code Chris20. So it's Chris20, Chris20, and that'll give you 20% off at gulagamerica.com once again. So it's long and short sleeve, graphic T-shirts and hoodies and, gosh, a whole lot more. Funny stuff, too. An original Canon. They have an F-15 shirt. The Husk says, you're going to need an F-15 if you're going to take me on. Well, they have that shirt. Or my pronouns. I was just reading this. They have my pronouns are 9mm, 45 ACP, and 50 cal. Or my pronouns are Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. It's fantastic. They're funny. They've got a great sense of humor, a great edge, and now a great deal. 20% off all this hilarious, patriotic-themed wear, witty, irreverent stuff. gulagamerica.com. Go to their website today, do a little shopping. I hope you will, and take advantage of that 20% off with Chris20 as your promo code. As they say, Gulag America is not our wish, but it is our warning. Check them out. Merry Christmas early from gulagamerica.com. Did you see the guy running around the It's a Small World ride naked?
Yes.
I got to tell you something. If I'm taking my pants off and running around Disney World, it's not going to be on the It's a Small World ride. That feels... Steve Moore is our chief economist. He joins us each and every week. The Committee to Unleash Prosperity, his regular newsletter you can find at the hotline. Steve-O, good morning. You know what I'm saying? I don't run around pantsless on It's a Small World. You got to pick another ride.
Yeah.
It seems.
Yeah, good morning. And by the way, that was not me. I just wanted to make that clear to your listeners. And by the way, it was probably some climate change activists, trying to make a political point. Spoiling the day for the kids. That's what they do.
Well, look, Steve, there's a lot that we could go to today. Biden, they say, is having one of the... he's polling terribly with rural Americans. He's polling terrible with young people. He's polling terrible with blacks and
minorities.
Yep. Karine Jean-Pierre was pressed repeatedly during the White House press briefing yesterday. Peter Doocy on what do you people think here at the White House? You think people are saying to themselves over their Thanksgiving table, gosh, I can't believe how affordable everything is and how great things are. Yeah. And she said, well, look, that may not be how they feel, but the data says otherwise. Are they going to get away with that? The data, it may not be how you feel, but our data says we're great.
Well, there's a great little meme about, the the Biden line last week. The turkey costs less this year. Yeah, if you're not paying for it, it costs less. Everything is more expensive, and people are financially stressed out. The good news for the economy, I guess, for the short term, is that the first 4 or 5 days of the Christmas shopping season were very strong. People are spending a lot, Chris, and I wonder where they're getting the money to do it. The sales over the weekend were, I think, 8% higher than last year. And I was on Fox yesterday, and I kind of made a joke, but I wonder if you think it is a joke. And I'll tell you, what I said. I said, because people are in debt. They're $1 trillion in debt on their credit cards. And yet we're spending, like we're the federal government,
Yes.
And so I said to Charles Payne yesterday that, maybe this is a cockamamie theory, maybe people think that Biden is going to bail out their credit card debt. Like, remember what he did with student loan debt?
Yep. And in fact,
Maybe people think, Uncle Sam's going to come to the rescue and pay it off, $1 trillion. Why not? Pay off $1 trillion. You don't have to pay that. Somebody else, the taxpayer will pick up that tab. And, I said it's kind of a joke, but then people were saying, this is no joke. This is what, they tried to buy young people's votes, right? With we're going to bail out, you're not going to have to pay back your student loan. Maybe they'll say, 9 months from now, right before the election, hey, vote for us, and you won't have to pay your credit card debt.
I don't doubt you're probably right about that. I think about, during COVID, my kids, there was a whole school year. My kids the district said, 4.0 for everybody. That's ultimately how they ended up solving the whole school year, that they locked kids out of school.
Everybody's above average.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone's an A student, straight A student. It's like we really have raised a culture where there is just no. I feel like such an old man on the porch.
There's no accountability,
none.
And everybody feels entitled to everybody else's money. And by the way, that, of course, is the way that you go bankrupt.
Yeah, that's right.
that's the rise and decline of a nation, is when everybody starts feeling like, Chris, you start feeling entitled to my money, and I feel not, entitled to your producer's money, and everybody is entitled to something they shouldn't be entitled to.
Credit card APR now averages 20.7%. It's been as high as 22.5%. According to the Federal Reserve Bank in Boston, I think, $1 trillion.
Yep.
That's where we hit in credit card debt. $1 trillion.
Yeah.
In national credit card debt, consumers.
Yeah, and how are people going to pay that back? And you're right that the worst way to borrow is to borrow on your credit card, because they will. By the way, that's the average rate. That means some people are paying well over 30% interest rate, and that means when they're making their payments, they're almost like the federal government now. When we make our payments on the debt, we're just paying for the interest. We're not paying to pay down the principal.
Yeah,
yeah. So it's a scary situation. I think, look, this can be solved by getting our house in order, and that's not that difficult. We have to cut, some useless, redundant spending in Washington. Everyone knows, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat. Everyone knows there's a lot of waste in the federal budget we could cut, and people wouldn't miss it. There was a really interesting article in the Wall Street Journal amplifying what I've been saying on your show, which is, the people are in line in the soup kitchen now for federal money are all these energy companies, these green energy companies, getting hundreds of billions of dollars of free money from the government. And many of them are going bankrupt. And so, it's just a crazy thing. We got to get the government out of the business of subsidizing other businesses.
There's a headline today at Axios. More Americans are losing money on home sales. Real estate and home sales are always so interesting to me. I don't know, as an economist, Steve-O, do you lean on real estate, home sales, business, rentals or whatever, occupancy? Do you look at that as a metric of the economy, or is that not a signature telltale?
Absolutely I do. Let's not forget, Chris, that how short our memories are, but you remember 2008, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we call the Great Recession, where the unemployment rate went up to 20% and the financial system almost collapsed. Remember that? It seems like a distant memory now, but it wasn't so long ago. And what was that? 2008? That was 15 years ago.
I bring it up.
So it was all because of the mortgage crisis. And when the housing market collapsed, the whole damn economy, then remember those giant financial firms like Bear Stearns and others just completely collapsed almost overnight. So, yeah, it makes me really nervous. Now, it's a weird housing market right now, though, because it's been so hot for the last 3 years, an amazingly hot housing market. And now the problem is that the prices have been so high for the houses, and then mortgage rates are so high that it's doubled the amount of a person's mortgage payment for buying a new home. So there aren't a lot of people available to buy the houses now because the mortgage rates are so high. It's an ugly situation for housing right now, and I think that you're going to have to see housing prices come down so that people can afford them.
Well, in fact, that's what this story from Axios. More Americans are losing money on home sales. More than 3% of U.S. homes sold at a loss from August through October of this year. That's up 2.4% from a year ago. Median loss was around $40,000. Highest proportion and largest losses were in San Francisco. Roughly 1 in 7 San Francisco owners lost money on their home sale. Median loss, $122,500. Other cities, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, and New York, among the top 5 cities with the highest proportion of losses, all north of 6%. Losses were least common in Rhode Island, Anaheim, California, oddly, San Diego, Boston, and Fort Lauderdale. So I don't know. What does that tell you?
Well, those cities that you mentioned that are losing, where housing values are falling the most, are, cities that are run by Democrats, cities that have basically defunded the police and are not prosecuting crime, and have havoc, and cities that close down their economies. And so, the chickens are coming home to roost now. I mean, who wants to buy a house now in New York or in Detroit or Chicago? By the way, I'm in Chicago right now. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful city. It's a beautiful, cool, chilly day, but blue sky. And it's, I'm thinking, wow, this is such a great city. How did the Democrats ruin it?
Chicago is, yeah. It is one of the great. It's one of the great American cities. I adore Chicago. It's where my wife's from, and yeah, much like I just said to Fast Eddie today.
Like, I'm on Michigan Avenue.
Yeah,
I'm on Michigan Avenue. I went to get my coffee this morning, and that's the Magnificent Mile, they call it. And I'm like, I hope nobody's shooting at me. I hope there's no drive-by shooting. I never used to have to worry about that, Chris.
Listen, I just said to Fast Eddie this morning, my 15-year-old daughter's never been to Midtown Manhattan. She's never seen the Rockefeller tree and the Rockettes and the whole thing. I'd love to take her, but I sincerely do not feel confident walking my wife and 15-year-old daughter through Midtown Manhattan right now. And I don't know if that makes me paranoid or not, but that's the way I feel. And same about Chicago, quite frankly.
So I'm glad we're having this conversation because there's a big debate that's happening on Thursday night. And I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about, Chris, but this is a really important debate, and I hope all your listeners tune into it. It is a debate between Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and they're going to be debating, the red state versus blue state model. California is the prototype, blue state, liberal, progressive state. Florida is the state, the freedom state, and they're going to duke it out. And it's going to be a really interesting debate. I provided some data to DeSantis this weekend, just showing on almost every metric that you look at, every socioeconomic metric, Florida is doing substantially better than California. Florida has a lower poverty rate. Florida has a lower unemployment rate. Florida is gaining hundreds of thousands of people every year. California is losing hundreds of thousands of people every year. The gas price. Here's one. The gas price in Florida is $3 a gallon right now. You know what it is in California, Chris?
I can't imagine. Over $5? I don't know.
$5. So think about that. And for the privilege of living in California, you pay $2 a gallon more at the gas pump. And I could just go on and on with these statistics. But, liberals, progressives are going to have to explain to the American people how their model is better when it underperforms everywhere it's been tried.
Steve Moore, our chief economist, there's something kind of it's probably more of a lifestyle piece than it is economy piece. In the Wall Street Journal, why is everyone so unhappy at work right now? And you can guess why. Despite wage increases, more paid time off, and greater control over where they work, the number of people at work say they are angry, stressed, and disengaged. That number is climbing, according to Gallup. Analysis of more than 57,000 workers shows job satisfaction scores have fallen to the lowest point since early 2020. And in interviews with people around the country, unhappiness is part of rethinking a rethinking of work life that began in 2020. We've talked a lot about this, how COVID kind of rewired people's brains. But most of all, it's the fact that even though rates, I should say, people's wages are increasing and all of that, inflation is eroding it and eating it up, and people feel like they're working hard and not really getting ahead. So it's leading to people feeling very discontented.
Well, I think that's obvious. That's an obvious point. Yes, you're 100% correct on that. I think also, I saw a statistic in the Wall Street Journal the other day that's related to what you're talking about. That showed that workers are now taking more sick time than ever before.
Yep.
And it used to be kind of, there was an ethic. If you had the sniffles or something, you just went in, you went into work and you shouldered, forward. Now, and especially young people, that was what was interesting. Young people are much more likely to call in sick now than ever before.
I took a poll.
And I don't know what that means.
Yeah. I took a poll yesterday at the Harumph Society, my 3-time-a-week newsletter. I just asked Harumphers in this audience about a 4-day work week, if they support it generally or not. And it was a 60-40 split no. So I would assume the most conservative people are the people that are newsletter subscribers of mine. And I was surprised, frankly, that it was a 60-40 split. 40% of newsletter readers said that they would prefer a 4-day work week. So culturally, it's becoming something the country seems to be gravitating toward. Steve?
Well, my work style has changed a lot since COVID. Yeah. I only go in about half time, to the office. And so I'm telecommuting more and more. And I think that's becoming more and more typical of what's going on in America today. But here's the thing to think about, folks. If we're working 4 days a week and the Chinese are working 6 days a week, which country is going to win? Right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's what makes me nervous. Let's go to 2-day work week and not produce anything.
Steve Moore, our chief economist there in the Windy City. Always a pleasure to catch up, Steve-O. Thank you, my friend. MyPillow.com. You know the jingle. There's MyPillow 2.0. It's out now, folks. I just slept on it again last night. You've been hearing for, 20 years. Mike has been making MyPillow. He's been making the commercials, and you wouldn't have thought you could improve upon a pillow, really. But the truth of it is, he's not only improved on the patented adjustable fill, but now he has a brand new fabric and a new temperature-regulating thread to keep you cool. If you sleep hot, and I kind of do, this is the softest, smoothest, coolest pillow, and I mean temperature cool, that you will ever own. And here's the deal. Mike is giving you a buy one, get one free offer with my name, Chris Podcast. When you use that as a promo code, Radio Listener Square, if you go to MyPillow.com and click on that Radio Listener Square, enter Chris Podcast, and you will get one free when you order a MyPillow 2.0. Chris Podcast, by the way, gets you up to 66% off everything on the site at MyPillow.com. Maybe it's the coffee. I am sipping MyPillow. My coffee it's called, not My Pillow. It's my coffee. It's delicious. Enjoying it right now. Thank you, Mike. He's got light roast and dark roast versions there, so try his coffee. Listen, support a great patriot. Support great American companies like My Pillow and the employees that work there up there in Minnesota. It's a fantastic customer service-oriented company at My Pillow. Every product that you buy from them is a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee if for some reason you don't like it, but they're really high-quality stuff. I mean, the slippers themselves, I sent slippers to a member of the staff. My wife has the MyPillow slippers. I sent pillows. I sent a couple of dog beds. Dean, my dog, is on a MyPillow dog bed, which he loves. Robes and bath towels, whole bath sheets, those great big absorbent bath sheets, if you like those. These Giza Dream Sheets we sleep on are like sleeping on a cloud. You will love these products. I just hope you go to MyPillow.com. Use my promo code, Chris Podcast. Get that buy one, get one on the new MyPillow. or up to 66% off every product. MyPillow.com, promo code ChrisPodcast. You know that debate Steve mentioned, it's Thursday night. Here's my big question. It's Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, versus Gavin Newsom, governor of California. My big question is, during the big red state, blue state debate on Thursday on Fox News, will Sean Hannity allow either of them to speak?
Probably not, Chris. All right, so you should do an over-under on questions on the Harlem Society. That's what over-under on questions.
You know what? That's pretty good. That's a great idea. Maybe we could do a contest. Hey, I'm telling the official show secretary. No, did he put? That's a great idea, Fast Eddie. Let's do that over at the Harumph Society. I want to run. Let's run a contest on. What do you think? Is it number of questions asked or amount of time spent talking by governors versus Sean? Like, if we clocked, this will be a little taxing on the highly overrated staff, but we may have to run tape on the whole thing and then clock the amount of speaking Sean does versus the amount of speaking the governors do. Is it a 1 hour debate, or do we know?
I don't know.
What's that?
Yeah. I thought it was an hour, but I mean, I'm hoping it's longer.
And there'll be commercials in there. So if it's an hour, you got to figure how many commercial breaks. I forget in TV. I think I feel like in a televised hour, it's something like 42 minutes. Is that?
That's correct. Yes. I think 42 minutes of content per hour. Yes.
Yeah. So without commercials, like 42 minutes. So if that's truly, if it's only going to be an hour between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis, moderated by Sean Hannity, how much of that 40 minutes will Sean take up versus the two governors? That might be, I might do that at the Harumph Society, actually. That could be fun. Maybe a prize for the best guess. How long will Sean talk in the 40 minutes versus the governors?
I think number of questions is valid too.
Or number of questions, you mean because he will spend so much time on one, you think? Or what do you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So a question will be him talking about, well, I've lived in California. I've lived in Florida. I've done this. I've done that. I've built houses here.
I build houses. I know California. I love Florida. I know. My wife lived in Florida. Yeah, we know, Sean. We know. When do your guests get to debate? Welcome into the Sean Hannity Show with my special guest, the governors you tuned in to watch. Oh, boy. Okay. Sorry. But not really. Panera. I know this annoyed some of you that I spent so much time. A couple of weeks ago, I got nasty notes from people. I can't believe you gave this Panera story so much time. Because I think it's a weird story. That's why. You know the story of the woman, the 21-year-old student, University of Pennsylvania, right? She's 21 years old. She goes into a Panera somewhere in the Philadelphia area, and she drinks this thing called charged lemonade. And then she suddenly, unfortunately, she dies. And she has a rare heart condition, though. She's always had a rare heart condition. And the family of this girl, they ultimately conclude that she was killed by this charged lemonade drink that Panera had not properly labeled. Well, now Panera has, obviously, they've gotten a lawyer because they're being sued. Some ambulance-chasing law firm in Philadelphia represents the family of the dead woman. And they're suing Panera for who knows how many millions of dollars. Panera's obviously got to get a law firm involved now. And Panera said, caffeine is everywhere in our society. It's the most frequently consumed active food ingredient in the world. There are no allegations as to how a beverage with less caffeine than the amount the FDA has stated is generally not associated with adverse health effects. How that can cause cardiac arrest, such as a warning, is mandatory, Panera's motion said. They went on to say, this woman is an intelligent Ivy League college student. She was knowledgeable about caffeine and allegedly vigilant in avoiding caffeinated beverages. In addition to the warnings the defendants provided, plaintiffs admit that she was aware there was caffeine in charged lemonade. Now, the family suing says, and I don't know because I haven't set foot in a Panera since this happened, and I never drank charged lemonade to begin with. The family says they are happy now. I'm sure I'm going to get notes on this because I always do. This was one of the most commented upon stories that I never intended anyone to comment on. Seriously. I mean, the number of people in this audience who sincerely seemed to think Panera might be at fault here blew my mind. But you know who you are because you reached out to me and said so. The family suing Panera says they're very pleased that Panera has now, quote, let's see, since the filing of the lawsuit, they appreciate the fact that Panera has placed warning signs and moved this dangerous product behind the counter to help prevent further injuries and death. So charged lemonade is now like a loaded handgun, apparently, Fast Eddie at Panera.
I'm so glad. I feel so much safer now that it's behind the counter. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So just know, trained professionals at Panera will now be handling the charged lemonade going forward. See, I don't think, if that's in fact what Panera has done, is taken this out of their drink service beverage bar where you go serve yourself, if they've done that, isn't that an act of contrition, like you're admitting or something? It's like a handgun to somebody. I mean, I wouldn't take that off my floor if I'm Panera. Would you? That kind of looks like you're acquiescing. Anyway. Oh, and this breaking news, Hunter Biden offers to testify before the House panel that summoned him. Buckle up for that one.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.